Now, if Josh told me to dial it down, I'd probably go scorched.
It's time to take A Therapeutic Dose, a prescription-strength reality TV podcast that explores the intersection of reality TV and therapy. Possible side effects may include entertainment, strong emotional reactions, and/or laughter. Here are your hosts, Ramona Ramirez and Margie McGee.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Therapeutic Dose, where we meet once a week at the intersection of reality TV and therapy. I am Ramona Ramirez Higgins, and unfortunately, I am at this intersection by myself. My dear friend and co-host, Margie McGee, she has a particularly hellaciously packed schedule this week, and we weren't going to be able to get together to record much sooner before the next Summer House episode airs. I asked Josh to pinch hit, which he would normally be happy to do, especially with this franchise. For some reason, it really activates him, which I love. I love watching Summer House with Josh. And his work schedule as well is also really, it just basically it all boiled down to me doing this solo. And let me let you in on something. I recorded this episode already. I did it last night, and I started listening to it today to edit. And it was fairly fucking terrible. I sounded like AI. I was talking really slow. I mean, granted, I think it was the first time I recorded this solo, but it's not easy. I don't know how the solo podcasters do it. I'm so used to just talking with my friend. You know, we look at each other on screen and talking to just a microphone and my notes. It's wild. You'd think it would be easy, but it was not. It was humbling. So I could not send AI Ramona out there. I had to sit down and re-record this. So hopefully it'll go better. Hopefully this will go better. We're here to talk about Summer House. See, it's like just doing these transitions are so strange without having another person with me. This is how the sausage is made, y'all. I guess before I get into the episode in earnest, Bravo's been in the forefront of a lot of the gossip blogs for the fact that a few Bravo celebrities felt the need to make their opinion about Bad Bunny's performance at the Super Bowl on Sunday known as if anybody asked, as if anybody was interested. And I'm sure some of you saw the news last week that E! Television was going to be putting out a show with some Roni OGs, as they like to refer to themselves as. Ramona, Kelly, Killeran, Ben Simone, for some reason. They wanted to resurrect her and cast her on their show. Luann, Sonia, Ramona, and Jill Zarin. So Jill Zarin released a particularly pungent, unwelcome, incorrect, problematic, racist, all around just absolute shit take on Bad Bunny's halftime performance, which I personally fucking bawled my eyes out to. That's just me. I loved it. A lot of Americans don't know that Puerto Rico is part of America, but I digress. Actually, you know me. You know that I would go off on that. I'm not going to do that right now, though. So the blowback was swift, fierce, loud. I don't know what she thought. It's funny because she even said in the video that's now been deleted, of course, I don't care if I get canceled. Okay, well, good. So E heard the people and they fired her before they even started shooting, which is fucking hilarious if you know anything about Jill Zarin. But they replaced her with Dorinda. Which is just as disappointing to me. I know that a lot of people find her iconic because of Bluestone Manor and her handful of memeable, gifable moments, clip, not well, bitch, and so forth. I have always found her to be a repugnant, mean drunk. If anyone watched Rhodey when Bethany was on, Bethany is also problematic. I mean, listen, I'm not watching this. I'm not watching any of these shows as a moral kumpai. You know what I'm saying? Like these people, a lot of these people are just like, holy shit, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what it's like to be like that for even a few minutes. My point is that Dorinda, if anyone needs to be reminded, she told Bethany and a table full of strangers, essentially, they were on their way to bring aid to Haiti after a particularly bad natural disaster. Dorinda said while she was wasted, just fucking so wasted, slurring. I believe she had her trademark smeared lipstick. She was drunk AF. She said, oh, well, you know, kids in Haiti, they don't go to college. So she said that. And then she said to Tinsley, I think later on in that same season, oh, well, if you want to have a baby, why don't you borrow my turkey baster? That's Dorinda. Those things that she said, that's Dorinda. And that's who they replaced Jill with. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. Who knows what'll happen? Who knows what will happen before they actually even have that call sheet and their first day of shooting set up? Maybe it'll just get canned altogether. This is not 2010. You can't just put these ladies on TV and not expect just a shit show. So there you go. Anyway, I've also shared that Josh and I are rewatching. I'm rewatching Summer House with him. He's watching it for the very first time. We're in the middle of season 4, and this is my second time watching the earlier seasons again. So we watched episode like 6 or 7 of season 4, and then the following night we watched episode 2 of season 10 that I'm going to be talking about today. We watched that. So it was weird, like watching an episode, season 4 Kyle compared to season 10 Kyle. And I'm here to tell you that there has been 0.0% growth on part of Kyle Cook. So in the season 4 episode that Josh and I finished watching a few nights ago, Kyle and Amanda are at dinner, and they are, I don't know if they're like rehashing a fight or kind of like talking about a fight they'd had recently. Basically, at the end of this discussion they're having over dinner, Amanda kind of says in a joking way, she's like, well, that's why I'm a disheveled piece of shit. And you see Kyle say, I said that in the heat of the moment. But basically what we can deduce from that conversation is that at some point before that dinner, they were having an argument and he called her a disheveled piece of shit. He called her a disheveled piece of shit. So in that same episode, she also shared that she feels like she has to prove herself to him. So something about his behavior is making her respond to that. Obviously, I don't know what she's referring to with that, but it's not good. And it kind of spoke, to me at least, about what he thinks about her mental health and how little respect or understanding or curiosity or concern he has for her, how little acceptance he has about the fact that they approach things differently. So watching him on season 10, after watching him, like obviously, like everything I'm saying is kind of like no shit, Sherlock. This is no new information. I'm not surprised in the least to hear any of this. I don't think anyone who's been watching Summer House at all, even though they just started last year, is going to be surprised at this. But it was just so jarring to see it from 6 seasons ago, you know, watching that episode probably a night or two before we watched the one that aired this week, the one I'm going to talk about right now. Anyway, I feel very glad that these people have consciously uncoupled. As consciously as Kyle is probably capable of doing. And I'm happy to see Amanda be in a better place. I know that she's super angry at him this season, and that's just kind of like if you've ever been in a relationship with an alcoholic or an addict, what's going down on screen seems fairly typical to me in that dynamic. Last year, she shared about the fact that she is taking medication for depression. And she talked about it, I believe, last week on Watch What Happens Live. Both she and Ciara are taking, well, they both said Prozac. I don't know if they're taking Prozac specifically or if they were just kind of referring to antidepressants in general as Prozac because that was one of the only ones that was available back in the day, you know? Anyway, so we are here to talk about Summer House Season 10, Episode 2, Stoned Cold Nude. So we resume with the 4th of July pool party. Kyle is pissed at Amanda for all intents and purposes skinny dipping. He has kind of like passively aggressively talked to her, and he pouts himself back inside, muttering how fucking unbelievable Amanda is. And in her confessional, Amanda says, we've been skinny dipping as a couple for 10 years. The editors roll tape of footage of the cast, including both Amanda and Kyle skinny dipping. She says he wants me to be more fun, but he doesn't like it when I'm having fun. The producer asks her why, and she says because it's not directly with him. And then in Kyle's confessional that they show right after, he says, listen, I'm all for nudity. I know I don't have much to stand on here, but after, this really was so gross, but after being ignored the whole party and just a weird first 24 hours in the house, I wasn't feeling it. I was like, everybody can see everything, and it felt weird. So what I'm hearing here is just a lot of I, me, and it's all about Kyle. Kyle wants her to have his brand of fun on his timeline. And he's just a full fucking hip, So after that, the cast is getting ready to go out for the night. So much of this cast just has really disturbing, serious-looking sunburns. And, oof, God. When they're all getting dressed, Kyle and Amanda are in their room, and he finds a second place ribbon, probably from the pile of the county fair themed costume discard pile. And he puts on his shirt and he asks Amanda, oh, how do you like my outfit? What do you think of my outfit? And she just ignores him. So it's all adding to his narrative of poor me and he's all alone, yada, yada. He's exhausting and immature and gross. I have no patience for him. Maybe one day he'll have no patience with himself. Not my business. Get it while everyone's getting ready. West checks in with KJ to see how he's feeling at the end of the day compared to the earlier in the morning when he shared with West that he had been feeling anxious that morning and that he does struggle with anxiety. And KJ thankfully says he's doing way, way better and asks West, hey, how are you doing? And West shares that he's having a way, way, way chiller summer than last year when he was tiptoeing around Ciara. Because, again, 2 summers ago, West and Ciara dated. After filming ended, their relationship ended, and the way he talked about their breakup in the press was really unsavory and disrespectful, rude, selfish, just dumb, immature. And he really hurt her feelings. So last summer in the house, she wasn't gonna just act like nothing had happened. She wasn't gonna act like she wasn't hurt or upset about how he treated her. And that was completely reasonable, in my opinion. And West was really bummed. He had a really shitty summer last year. She wasn't going to go out of her way to make him feel comfortable because he fumbled talking about the relationship in the press so badly, nor should she. If someone fucks up and they experience healthy shame, like West did last summer, that's okay. It's not her job to make him feel comfortable because he fucked up. You know what I mean? So yeah, he's having a better time and he's glad for that. I'd go so far as to say that I think Ciara did West a favor by not coddling his feelings last summer. Maybe he had some growth because he was sitting in some discomfort and decided to look at it and get curious. That's just my opinion. So the cast arrives at Southampton Social Club. They're at 2 belly-up tables next to each other, but not at the same table. So on one table are all of the women cast members and Ben, the Australian model who was on The Bachelor, who was a bachelor on the Australian Bachelor franchise. And then at the table right next to theirs are the men. Of course, Kyle starts singling out Ben for being with the women at their table instead of the dude table. He's been drinking all day. He's been in the sun drinking all day. He's already slurring again in this scene. And Kyle starts speculating that, oh, well, Ben has an accent and that's an unfair advantage. And I can see the ladies being just as happy to have KJ at their table because so far he's also not an obnoxious, passive-aggressive drunk. I don't know. That's just me. Kyle's going to look for, in my opinion, he looked for any kind of evidence he could that he was being singled out and he was going to be a victim. It's so gross, dude. Ugh, gross. So unattractive. So Bailey asks Ben about his experience on The Bachelor. He did not end up engaged. And Bailey is stunned by this because he is so beautiful. And yeah, Bailey, it takes more than being beautiful to have a successful relationship or get engaged, but also that she is talking about The Bachelor. So you know what? Scratch everything I just said because that doesn't count. And then we learn some information about Ben that I thought was really interesting. In his confessional, he says, when somebody's flirting, I go red so easily. Could be because of how I was raised. And we learn that he was raised super religious in a house where they didn't talk about sex. So he finds conversations around sex to be uncomfortable. And that strikes him as odd. Like he knows that it's crazy because he's also a model. And he's often posed in highly like sexual poses or wearing minimal amounts of clothing, etc. So he tells us that, listen, when you're looking at me, there's a bit more than meets the eye. I'm a private person, believe it or not. And I felt really glad to have this context because I found myself watching him last week. I wasn't very compelled. I was like, okay, here's like a stereotypically good-looking dude. I don't know much about his personality. I'm not sure if he's funny or not yet or what. It's just, I know he's a model and typically someone that looks like him goes through life in a different way than people that stereotypically as good looking as him do. Does that make sense? I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that we all know about pretty privilege, So I found myself kind of like, I don't know. We'll get to know him. I was grateful for that knowledge. Back at the dudes table, Jesse asks Kyle, hey, did you get spicy with Amanda earlier? Because I've never seen you get jealous before. And Kyle, again, slurring, probably this close from being full-blown wasted, not using good judgment, but I don't know if he does that when he's sober anyway. He tells the table, there is so much that Amanda and I need to talk about. And even though I shouldn't be saying this, and then he proceeds to share with everybody, she smokes weed every night and passes out. And so the guys kind of take a beat to let that in. And Wes says, well, when do you guys bleep? Meaning, like, when do you guys sleep together? And Kyle replies, good question. Such a fucking drama queen, dude. I swear, women get such a bad rap all the fucking time. And Kyle is the biggest, babiest bitch on Bravo. So Wes pushes for clarification, like, are you guys sleeping together less often than you prefer or just flat out not? And Kyle basically says it's never. And then Kyle tells the group that their apartment basically smells and looks like a frat house because she's, and I quote, chaotically living. So we see a clip of a side table in their house. I don't know if it's her bedside table or just another table in their house. On this table is a framed picture of them. And behind the frame is a bag of edibles. The brand is Smokies, and I can confirm that their product is very good and consistent. Although I am very loyal to my brand of edibles, in a pinch, I would absolutely be on board with a Smokies. So we see a bag of gummies, and we see a bunch of burned out matches in an ashtray, and he tells them that he can't hire a cleaning company because there's just too much stuff everywhere. And Kyle tells them that he even asked Amanda's mother-in-law to come out and help them clean at one point. So a lot of things. When I heard Kyle talking about this, when I saw the bedside table, when we saw the other clips of the surfaces in their house with chaotic piles, I know that Amanda's talked about having depression, which I have also had. But I will tell you that as someone with ADHD, that is what my space can look like. And it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to live with chaotic piles. It doesn't feel good to look at something that makes me feel so stressed, but not know where to start or how to start or what to do, like, in the process. My very first therapist, Fran, who you guys have heard me talk about so many times before, she told me probably when I was 16, Ramona, sometimes your outsides, if your living space is chaotic, like if your bedroom, my teenage bedroom at the time, is in chaos, it might mean that your emotions are in chaos. And she was spot on back then. And little did I know that would continue to be, accurate for me as a grown-up. I don't feel good about the fact that my bedside table looks similarly. I don't have bags of gummies or matches hanging out on my bedside table. Not that there's anything wrong with it. For me, that wouldn't work in my house, but it's piled high with like books and lip balm and scrunchies and hair clips. And I don't know about you guys, but I have like 3 journals going. I don't just have like one journal. I don't know how that happens. It just does. Sometimes my bedside table has 3 drinks on it and maybe an empty glass. My ADHD meds are there. Like, it's not pleasant necessarily. I love it when it's clean and it stays like that for a while. And it's just not sometimes. It's just not most of the time. And I don't like it. I'm still trying to figure out how to work with my chaos, how to work with my piles, how to work with my ADHD and my living space. And it's just a lot. So that is what I thought of immediately. This is not lazy. It is not hoarder. It is maybe a mental health something on the spectrum of mild depression to like full-blown fucking, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. I can't get out of bed kind of a thing. I don't know. That's just what it said to me. So that's my take as far as the clutter and the chaos goes, you know? Now, as far as cannabis, I mean, I'm sure I've shared this before on the podcast, especially as someone that has ADHD, I have found cannabis to be a really effective, powerful, profound medicine that I use for my ADHD. I have found that it is one of the only things that can turn off the hamster wheel in my head that is constantly going. It's rusty and going 1,000,000 miles an hour all the fucking time. Cannabis turns it off, and it gives my brain a break, and it gives my nervous system a break. And I use it intentionally. I find it to be as helpful to me as I do the psychedelic medicines that I use. And I use it with as much intention as the psychedelic medicines that I use. And so I don't know. I don't know how Amanda's using it. I didn't know that she used cannabis before he talked about it in the episode this week. But I do know that it still has a lot of stigma around it. And it's a real fucking bummer. And I am doing a lot of reading and educating myself about decolonizing the stigma around cannabis. And it frustrates me a lot still that there is so much judgment around it. Stoner, wasteoid, burner, yada, yada. I don't know anyone that uses cannabis like that. I didn't even really use cannabis outside of girls' trips before it became legal and after I was done breastfeeding. But yeah, I find it to be medicinal for my mental health, for sure. I'm very upfront about it. I meet with my psychiatrist every 4 to 6 weeks. And one of the first things she asks me is, how is your cannabis use? And I always tell her, I'm like, to date, it is still one of the only things that can chill out my fucking brain. And she understands. So it's not like I'm not hiding it. She knows how I feel about it. And she also knows I work with psychedelic medicines, and it's very common up here now. So as someone that has depression, someone that has ADHD, someone that has the overwhelm that comes with both of those, I have found cannabis to be medicinal and an aid. It's not the answer for me. It's an option that I find successful to use. So yes, I'm sure everyone is understanding what the hell I'm talking about right now. So like Kyle can go get wasted on, and just drink all the fucking time. Okay, here's another thing about cannabis is that depending on who you ask, some people have referred to it as a psychedelic medicine. It has been for me more often than not another consciousness expanding medicine that I can use. I have been able to work through things that have given me issues and see different perspectives after ingesting cannabis. That's just my experience, you guys. It's just my experience. Hopefully, Amanda is enjoying some of the same benefits that I've reaped with cannabis, but I'm not a fan of how Kyle is judging her about it while he pounds hard seltzers every night and for a living. I don't get that. So Amanda decides to join their table to see what they're discussing, and she's standing behind Kyle. And Kyle can sense that she's there, and he tells the guys, oh, shit, now I feel bad. And KJ does say, we're here for you, whatever you need. And Amanda hears this, and she's like, Kyle, what do you need? And looks at the table and is like, you guys better tell me so I can find out in person instead of on camera, like basically when this episode airs. So instead of telling her what he just told the guys, he tells her, I feel like you're disinterested in me and disinterested in us. You haven't asked a question in years. What? What? She does say you over-exaggerate everything. And Kyle slurs to Amanda that he just wants companionship. He wants friendship. And he doesn't get that she doesn't give him that. And I'm like, just say it, Kyle. You want sex and you're pissed that she's not having sex with you right now. I think that's one of his big issues. We've seen the preview of, I think it's like maybe next week or sometime in the season, where he's talking about their chemistry. And I don't know, like my take as someone who's watched her ask him for what she specifically needs, which is don't go out a lot. And if you do go out, don't get drunk. And he does it every single summer. And he has been unfaithful because of it. And she has a lot of issues around it. Maybe that's why she's not fucking you, dude. I don't think it's the cannabis, all right, buddy? I really don't. So he sulks off. She returns to her table, and Ciara is just like, friend, we're going to keep it cute right now because people are recording. I don't know if she was referring to patrons recording them or if she was referring to production, but they table the conversation. And Amanda tells Ciara and Ben that it's unfair because she's been putting up with this shit from him for so long, and now he feels like she's ruining his life. Anyway, the group starts arriving home from their night out in chunks. Ciara and Amanda are home early at 11:30. Kyle, Carl, Bailey, Levi, and Ben are home at like 12:45. And we see Kyle stumbling inside. He's wearing shades inside the house. Carl is basically like Google Mapsing him to his bedroom, telling him, I turned the light on for you. At one point, Bailey is like helping Kyle, who's 15, 20 years older than him? Probably not 20, but you know what I'm saying. She's a child and he's a fucking full-ass near middle-aged man. Like she's helping him stand up, making sure he doesn't fall from being so wasted at one point. And Carl in his confessional says, Kyle's complaints I've heard, but there's something about this summer that's different, and it feels like he's crumbling, and I don't know how to help him. And when Wes, KJ, and Jesse come home last, I think Wes says, wow, we outlasted Kyle. So this is just Kyle's Kyling, you know? So the next morning is Saturday, July 5, and Carl sends a text to everybody in the house asking who wants bagels. And Bailey and Levi are like in awe that a man is going to make a gesture this sweet. And they're just in awe of how kind he is and how muscly he is. And I just feel bad. I feel bad that yes, it was super nice what Carl did, but like that's what your friends should do. Hey, who wants bagels? Also, I think this speaks to where Carl is in his sobriety journey. He's like super about being of service and super about showing up for other people. And it's not in a way that like he's getting his esteem from it or doing it for anything other than just because it's out of the goodness of his heart. I'm really liking Carl so far this season, and I'm really excited to see more. Bailey starts talking to Levi about Ben and his blue eyes, and Levi says that he makes fabulous eye contact, but it's kind of jarring because she doesn't get the sense that he's flirting with the eye contact. Like he's just trying to connect as a person. Just so interesting. That conversation was very interesting. Amanda leaves the bedroom that she's sharing with Kyle, and she doesn't necessarily announce her departure or what she's doing. Kyle's like, where are you going? And she just says out and continues to walk out the door. And he's just already man-babying about it. Ciara and Amanda join Jesse in his bed upstairs for some bedbug action, summer 2025. Back downstairs, we see Kyle like harumphing around the house. He's muttering to himself about how sick he is of this fucking shit. And he finally goes to take a run. Carl's home with bagels. Bailey tells him it was the best text she ever got. And she said, oh my God, a man wants to get me food? Like, girl, Yeah. Yeah. That's okay. Hopefully this won't be like such a surprisingly sweet gesture for her for much longer. She'll start to get more and more people in her circle that are going to get her bagels. So Carl asks her and Levi at the breakfast table if they met any dudes at the party and asks Bailey specifically, what are you looking for in a guy? And at that moment, Ben walks in from the pool. And she just looks at him and answers Carl, Aquaman. And Ben is Aquaman. So anyway, even though it's a Saturday, they pack up the cars and they go back to the city, which I don't know why, but it bothered me both times I watched it. Why are they going home on a Saturday and not on a Sunday? I thought it was strange. Anybody else think that? So back in the city during the week, we see a montage of KJ skateboarding. He is an excellent skateboarder with amazing street skate skills. We see Ben watering and pruning and talking to his houseplant. And I thought that was really sweet. And the main crux of the week that they're back in the city is Lindsay and Ciara meet for drinks. And Lindsay tells Ciara that she doesn't go out anymore, really, because I don't know how old Gemma is at this time. Maybe, is she less than a year old? Unclear, but she's a baby. And she doesn't care that she doesn't go out anymore because she loves Gemma and she loves being a new mom. And in her confessional, she says, Gemma's a really happy baby and she's my pride and joy. And I'm really proud of myself to be able to go through this breakup with Turner, which is Gemma's dad, while figuring out how to be a new mom and to do it in a way that Gemma has never even felt a thing. And then she ends her confessional saying, but I've raised so many man babies in my life. I was born to be a mom. I don't know if she successfully raised them. She bailed, which is good. Dude. But I'm really happy for her. If you've been watching the show, you know how traumatized Lindsay was, probably still / is, to have been abandoned by her mother at a young age. I don't know if she was still pre-verbal, but it was definitely, wasn't it like when she was like 2 or 3, like really, really young, like achingly young. We've seen how that abandonment manifested in her friendships and for sure in her romantic relationships. And she was always very aware of where her behavior came from. And I want to congratulate Lindsay on breaking the cycle. I believe her. I believe she is probably every bit as good and present of a mom as she says she is. From what it looks like from seeing her with Gemma, it looks like Gemma's a very happy, attached baby. So I'm happy for her. Amanda arrives. She asks Lindsay when she's going to be able to come to the house. We find out that Lindsay's going to be able to come out to the house the weekend after next. So that means we'll probably see her in the next couple of episodes back at the summer house, that'll be interesting. And Lindsay tells Amanda that she spoke with Kyle earlier that day and they talked about work, but then he kind of unloaded to her about Amanda. And he told Lindsay about their bad weekend. And she says he seemed really defeated. And she got the sense that Kyle wished that Amanda would have spent more time with him. And he doesn't feel like he can talk to the single guys in the house because they're on different wavelengths. And Amanda's like, well, that's fucking hilarious because that's all he did that weekend was talk to them about me. Lindsay tells her that Kyle feels like he's really alone in the relationship. And Amanda says, fair, but there's a reason he feels this way. And then she fills Lindsay in. She says, on one hand, I'm really happy that he feels creatively fulfilled as a DJ. But there's another part of me that's pissed off that the 2 things I've asked him to do and to change about himself for years are his drinking and going out late. And ironically, the career he chose, being a DJ, is based around those 2 things. She says, on top of that, there are the constant rumors, constant DMs. And she tells Lindsay and Ciara about when Kyle went out with his brother and Kyle fell asleep at a fan's apartment. This is after a DJ set. He fell asleep at a fan's apartment and came home at 6:30 in the morning. And this happened, I think she said February, so probably a year before we're seeing this episode. And she said it's been like 10 years of getting DMs like this, basically. She says that she can't put up with it forever. Lindsay and Ciara are rightly shocked. When it broke in the gossip blogs a couple of months ago or 6 weeks ago, whatever, that he was out till 6:30 in the morning at a fan's house or at somebody's house, didn't come home. Dude, Ciara was disgusted and Lindsay was taken aback. I mean, it's pretty gnar, you know? So the next thing we see is Bailey shooting a segment for her It Girl online show, kind of like a new take on a street style blog or vlog where she finds people with cute style on the street and interviews them and gets to know them more. And she's talked to people like Diane von Furstenberg and apparently her ex-boyfriend, the one that she shared about in the first episode of the show. He criticized this project of hers a lot. He criticized her job a lot. And he despised what she was doing and was resentful when it became successful, even though she paid for everything: rent, food, vacations, yada, yada. So thankfully, she's no longer with him. She's happy that she's successful. She loves what she does, and she isn't going to stop. Another scene in the city is Kyle goes to Carl's house. And it struck me, and I'm really glad that Kyle said something about it because I was thinking it. So Kyle walks into Carl's apartment, and he's holding a delicious, full iced coffee. And I was like, did he even fucking ask Carl if he wanted a coffee? And of course, as soon as I thought that, he's like, oh, I stopped to get a coffee on the way and I should have asked you if you wanted one, but I didn't. Carl's like, it's fine, whatever. And Carl seems really great. His place is beautiful. His space is beautiful. He seems super serene, mind, body, soul. He just seems like he's really at peace and settled. And his empathy and desire to help his friends, it feels palpable to me, you know, again, projecting, but that's what we do here on A Therapeutic Dose. So Carl tells Kyle that he's doing great. His apartment, it gave him a new lease on life after his breakup with Lindsay. We learned that he considered moving to Charleston. Obviously, if he did that, he was probably going to be on Summer House. Maybe he was going to move back to Pittsburgh, where he's from. And then Kyle starts telling Carl that he feels embarrassed for his behavior last weekend. He's ashamed to be talking about his relationship with people that he just met. And he wants to be a responsible, respectful husband and feels bad. He doesn't want to make excuses for himself, but he thinks he crashed out because he wasn't realizing how much pressure he was under with Loverboy. And sometime in the beginning of the episode, I was like, dude, he's going to use work as an excuse at some point. He's going to use work as an excuse for his behavior at some point. And then we learn, because he tells Carl that Kyle had to put $500,000 of his own money into Loverboy in order to save it. And that meant that he stopped paying himself a salary from Loverboy. And that's part of why he started DJing to pay the bills. Basically, he's like, that's what I've been up against for the last several months. And I'm like, okay, fine. That's fine. But do you have to get wasted while you're out DJing? Carl had no idea that Kyle wasn't taking a salary anymore. And in his confessional, Kyle says, I used to incur costs to travel to promote Loverboy. And now I'm getting paid to promote Loverboy by DJing. And he acknowledges in his confessional that he does go out a lot, but when he is home and he puts in an effort with Amanda, it feels like it's not reciprocated and it's eating him alive. Oh, Jesus Christ. Again, it's like, okay, she's been telling him what she needs since season 1, when they weren't even like technically like a couple yet. They were just still dating. So I don't know why he's so shocked right now, other than it's just willful and self-centered. So he tells Carl that Amanda gave him the cold shoulder all last weekend and it took a toll on him. And I'm like, dude, we've watched 9 seasons of your behavior taking a toll on her. And again, I have to remind myself that they are both making choices to be in the relationship, even though I am more on her side than I am on his. I'm not on Kyle's side at all. I mean, let's just be honest. Maybe I have a little bit of, you know, I want better for him. Let's say that. Okay, that's what I can say with honesty. But I can relate to Amanda in some ways, and I've seen her be very open with him and specific with him over the years about what she needs, and he's not doing it. So like, I don't know what you expect. But they have both chosen to stay. They've both chosen to kind of like, you know, they're both there in the role of, I can't say whether or not Kyle is an alcoholic. He strikes me as someone that has a problem with drinking for sure. And if he ever came out and said, I'm an alcoholic, I'd be like, okay, good. That seems to fit. Like, I don't get to take his inventory, but like from where I'm sitting, he reminds me of alcoholics I know. That's what I'll say. And being in any kind of relationship with an alcoholic, whether they're your family member or your romantic partner or your friend, it's fucking complicated and hard. And it affects everybody, even if you're not the one drinking. It's not like I don't notice myself making a lot of blanket statements. I'm not blind to my judgments. I'm not blind to my own Al-Anonism. I promise. It's just messy. It's messy, and they're both making choices. And Carl feels really bad, and he tells Kyle, I see you guys struggling to be on the same page. I don't want what happened to me and Lindsay to happen to you guys. And he knows it's hard when things aren't aligned. And he lets Kyle know that he's been thinking of ways that he can support him. He can show up and support his friend. And Carl is sober. He's sober in every way, shape, and form of the word. Kyle assures Carl that he and Amanda aren't on the brink of collapse. He says he adores her and loves her and he can't imagine his life without her. But he thinks she pushes a lot of the responsibilities of the relationship onto him. And he hears her say over and over again, he's drunk, he's DJing, he's traveling. And he thinks that that's an inaccurate portrayal of the full picture. Oh my God, dude. I don't know. Go back and watch your own show. We're not there and we're seeing it. I don't know. Like there's editing and then there's just like what's going on. I don't know. I don't know where he's coming from. So the following weekend we're back in the Hamptons and there's new outdoor furniture. Amanda tests it out immediately. Amanda says in her confessional that she and Kyle never talked about their conflict from the previous weekend. And she didn't initiate the conversation with him because, as Kyle so eloquently said, she's not doing shit. And she's ready to have it when he brings it up. So, God, yeah. We're watching either she's over it or she's on her way to being over it, like very, very momentarily. And this is all behavior that I recognize because I've lived it. Bailey and Levi arrive at the house. Amanda tells them that Ciara is still 30 minutes away. And she's so jealous because Bailey and Levi are together, but Amanda is alone. Kyle hears Amanda say this and it pisses him off. And he's like, you have me. But she wants Ciara. She doesn't want Kyle. But shit, it was harsh. And I feel like when I was taking notes, like I felt like I was taking down so many things they were saying verbatim, but it all felt relevant to like the overarching issues that we're watching go down in front of us, like this conflict between the two of them, the end, like the dregs of their marriage. There's just like little examples, like in every freaking scene that they're in together of how it's not working anymore. Ciara arrives with her friend Mia. And Mia, we learn, is a realtor who worked at a club in New York called The Box for a long time. And she said it's basically like a sex club. Now, I Googled it. They have burlesque shows, and it might be a little bit more risque than like a regular burlesque show. It's a sexy club. I don't know about a technical sex club, but maybe so. I don't know. And she said basically she was shy until she had that job, and then it kind of forced her to break out of her shell in order to survive. And now she is bubbly and outgoing. I'm excited to have her in the house. Mia and Ciara are also cooking dinner that night. So after that, their plans for the evening are going to be to go to a club where Jesse's friend is going to be DJing. And Kyle mentions that he wants to get his credit card from where he left it the previous weekend when he was wasted. And West and Jesse start making kind of inside references to the previous weekend and how drunk Kyle was. I think, doesn't West say like, yeah, I want to go see if I can find the piece of my forehead skin that's on the table where I bonked it. And Amanda kind of puts it all together and she's like, okay, so all of you were drunk, but you, KJ and West, weren't drunk enough to notice how fucked up Kyle was. And then she asks Kyle, is this the night that Bailey walked you to bed? You were that fucked up? And he kind of like, ums. And, you know, it was a long day of drinking and I wasn't in a good place and I overcompensated. And I'm like, way to own your shit, bruh. This is what makes Josh so mad about Kyle is that he never fucking takes responsibility for anything. West and Jesse kind of like lightly start sticking up for Kyle. Like, well, I've been that drunk before in the past. And Amanda looks at them and she's like, well, I know, but are you guys married? And they're like, eh. And she's like, okay, well, then butt out. And Kyle just tells her, like, dial it down. Now, if Josh told me to dial it down, I'd probably go scorched, you know? Well, maybe I wouldn't, but I'm saying that like the impetus to go scorched would be there, and maybe a previous version of me would go scorched. I guess it just depends the time. I guess it just depends on like how much work I've been doing on reacting versus responding. So instead of going scorched, she just says she needs a minute and she excuses herself to go inside. And Kyle immediately starts victiming himself and goes, "Oh, how did that spiral so fast? I don't understand what I'm doing so wrong." And this is just, again, more examples of the resentment and how it's been building up between the two of them for years. And it's also kind of like he does not look inside at all. He doesn't want to get curious over what he does. He does not want to get curious at all about his behavior. Or why does she seem to be so angry at me all the time right now? Like, really get curious about it. So I have no patience, or it's very hard for me to have empathy for him. Kyle tells Ben that Amanda is feisty all the time and she's prickly, and being married to her is like being married to a cactus, and she's trying to make a fool of me in front of everyone. Bailey and Levi reminded me in this scene of like kids in the alcoholic home. Like when Amanda goes inside, the two of them go to another part of the patio and they kind of are looking at each other like, what the fuck just happened? Is this normal? And Bailey observes that between Kyle and Amanda, one of them will say something. It'll get quiet. There's no resolution, but she recognizes that there's still just like steeping in resentment and frustration and anger. And it reminds her of the dynamic that she had from her relationship with the guy that didn't like her show, the one that broke up with her at fucking Sweetgreen. And she says they're frustrated with each other all the time and it's a cycle and one of them needs to concede. And it's true. Okay, I can only speak from my own experience and I can only project. For me, there was a time when conceding would have meant the other person had all of the fucking power. It would have meant that I was condoning their unacceptable behavior, that I was accepting their unacceptable behavior. And it would have meant that I was giving up my power. Now I know that that's not true. It's like my ego is what would keep me from conceding. Fear around being taken advantage of. That is no longer something that works for me. That's no longer a choice that works for me. It doesn't have to mean those things if I concede. Because if conceding is going to bring peace, I don't even know if I would use the word concede anymore either, but I know what she's saying in that scene. You know what I'm saying. So back in the kitchen, Amanda asks Mia, "How you doing? And is everybody being nice so far?" And she says yes. And Ciara kind of asks even Kyle. And Mia's like, "Yeah." Ciara says, "Okay, just making sure." And Mia's like, "Is that not typical of him?" And Amanda says, "Oh, no, he's always nice, just not to me," and kind of like laughs. And it's all just very awkward and just speaks a lot. So the next scene is a wonderful conversation about race. And it's one of the few that we've seen on Summer House. I don't know if any of you watched season 6. That was when there was another Black castmate. Her name was Maya. And she and Ciara, in an episode in season 6, they had a conversation with their castmates on some microaggressions that Maya had experienced with some of her castmates and just from existing in the world in general. It was very powerful and profound, and I think that was probably the first conversation in earnest to happen around race on this franchise. So I very much appreciated seeing this conversation go down between Ciara and KJ. Back on the patio, Ciara texts KJ, and he asks her, like, "Hey, was your hair in braids last weekend too?" And she said yes, and starts to tell him that she wore braids a lot as a child and is for some reason drawn back to wearing them now. And this makes her think of her mom, who put her in braids as a kid, even though it wasn't her choice. And she says, "My mom was so crazy. She told me that I had a perimeter I wasn't supposed to leave. She told me, turn your music down before you go into any neighborhood." And Ciara says, "Now I really understand why she had to be so annoying. We were living in an all-white area." And she says, "All of these things she was telling me, all of it was as a means to survival." Just saying those words that she used out loud, a means to survival, Like, it makes my stomach kind of fucking drop. It makes my throat catch. I paused the TV when she said this, and I looked at Josh, and I was like, imagine living with that every fucking day of your life. Imagine living with the fear that your child could leave the house and lose their life because of the color of their skin, because they have more melanin. I have had experiences. I'm half Mexican. I do feel like I present Latina. It has happened many times where someone will come up to me who speaks Spanish and just start speaking to me in Spanish. And I'm like, I'm sorry, mi español es tan basura. My Spanish is trash, is what I say, basically. I try, whatever. I'm learning Spanish. You all know it's my fucking shame. It's not even my secret shame. It's my like legit on my sleeve shame about how terrible my Spanish is. But I do practice. My point is that I'm not Black. I'm Latina. I have been followed in stores. I have been like, okay, if I'm going to go to Barney's today, I'm going to bring this handbag instead of this. I'm not going to wear my sweatpants. I'll put on this outfit instead because I don't want to fucking deal with it. I don't want to deal with the I don't want to deal with the racist shit. I feel like my son presents as Latino, especially in the summer when he's really, really tan. I've spent time wondering what his experience will be like as he grows, and he becomes a teenager and then becomes a young man. I'm not going to lie and say that I don't have fear about that. I don't know also either if any of you have ever been scared of the cops. I remember it was probably in 2018, a mom friend group I was in. We were going to go canvass in District 22. I don't think that was like Kevin McCarthy's district, but it might be Robert Garcia's. I'm not sure. But basically, a bunch of us were going to go from San Francisco. We were going to go east, a more inland district, okay? Listen, California is blue. It's, for the most part, progressive, liberal, and I don't get those two things intertwined, okay? Liberal and progressive are not the same things to me. My point is that there are some streets, like on the way to Napa, on the way to wine country, there are some areas where I don't want to fucking get a flat tire because I'm not sure that whoever owns the fucking vineyard that I'm broken down in front of, I don't know how they feel about brown people. I don't know. I've seen more than enough things flying in people's yards, stickers, etc. when I drive east, maybe 10 miles, that make my hair stand up, that make me go on alert, So on their way there, the person that's driving, my friend, she's white, she's speeding, we get pulled over. And I don't want to say she's giving the highway patrolman attitude. He was also brown, but like not all skin folk are kinfolk, as we've learned. It's been abundantly clear in the last few weeks how true that is. So I'm just like sitting in the front seat, just like not making eye contact, like, please God, let's just fucking just take the ticket and let's go. Don't do this. And there was one other woman of color in the car and she was sitting in the back seat. And when we got back to San Francisco after canvassing that day, she texted me and she's like, were you shitting your fucking pants when she was going off on that patrolman? And I was all, you better believe I was. But my friend who was driving didn't have those concerns. Anyway, when I speed on the highway now, I have a little conversation with myself more often than not when I'm doing like 70, 80 miles an hour. Like, okay, Ramona, are you willing to get pulled over right now if you're choosing to drive this quickly? What are you going to do with your hands? Where are you going to place them on the steering wheel? What are you going to say if they ask you, do you know why I pulled you over? Which is against the law. As of, I believe, January 1st, 2024, you can no longer, if you pull someone over on the freeway in California, you can no longer say, do you know why I pulled you over? Because guess what? That question was setting up too many people that were Black or people of color. There are studies, for Christ's sake, Google it. So, I've had these conversations because I don't want to fucking get shot for speeding my goddamn car. So I love that they had this conversation. KJ's been listening to Ciara talk intently, nodding in agreement the entire time. He validates her like, yeah, dude, where you grew up in Georgia, that's like South, and tells her about how even though he grew up in the Midwest, there were pockets around where he lived that could be more South. You know what I'm saying? And his grandpa used to tell him, as a Black man, you have to be cautious. You have to be a certain way to get by. And he says, I always have that in the back of my mind. So if you don't think about what that experience is like for KJ, or what that experience is like for KJ's grandpa to tell him that, for Ciara's mom to tell her daughter that, for their safety, for their survival, so that they fucking stay alive. Think about that. Think about how exhausting it must be, because you have to put that much more brain power and vigilance to do things like an errand or getting gas or going to fucking CVS. Like, that background app refresh is just going all the time. All the time. Layers of energy spent on being alert, thinking about what you're wearing, where you're going, how loud your music is, what you're driving, et cetera, et cetera. Exhausting. Exhausting. Fuck you, Jill Zarin. So KJ shares that his mom is 50. And when I think about the fact that I could technically have a 20-something-year-old, I know that's true, but honestly, I just feel like that's fucking rude. And Ciara's mom is 64, but she thinks of her mom as being forever in her late 30s. And she puts kind of internal pressure on herself because she wants to get herself together enough that she can take care of her mom. KJ can also empathize with that. He felt what I'm assuming is internal pressure to take on the role of being the man of the house when he was growing up. And seeing his mom work her ass off to support him and his sisters made him want to do something. They're just really sweet young people. Ciara shares with him that she and her mom haven't had the easiest time of it in their relationship. She shares that her parents divorced when she was 5, and before that, they had always fought. Ciara is crying while sharing this information. She says it was a lot of turmoil, and she doesn't want to recreate that for her future family. And if she can do anything to salvage relationships that are scarred, she wants to do that. But it's also, she's finding out that balance of creating boundaries to protect herself as well. Oh my God. 10 out of 10, no notes. Like, I'm sorry to say that, but it made the hair on my arm kind of stand up. Like, this is the shit. This is cycle breaking in real time. I love that she has this like awareness, like she's done enough work where she can see all of the nuance involved in relationships. I know for me, and I don't know if this is because I'm an adult child of an alcoholic or what it is, I know that when I was little, I had to make things very black and white in order to have the world make sense to me. And that was a very effective coping skill as a child. As an adult, it does not work at all. It causes me pain when I do that. And so I too am looking at how I can have relationships that are scarred, as Ciara says, balancing out with boundaries to protect myself. So I just loved this conversation that they were having. She starts to apologize because she has started crying. And again, 2 out of 2 episodes with KJ, he says, and he's emphatic when he says it, never apologize. And he tells her, I understand you more than you know. And in her confessional, Ciara says, I try to see my mom as just a girl. She was a single mom raising 2 girls alone, trying to make ends meet. I can understand where she didn't have the emotional capacity to cater to us how I felt she may have needed to. But she was just trying to keep the lights on. And Ciara says she's trying to be less rigid. And that is the theme of her summer. And she's like, either we're going to start fresh and figure it out, or I'm going to have no relationships with my family or the idiots in the house. And it's true. I'm just very happy for her with this perspective. So KJ says what I was thinking. He says, we're going to be better than our parents were, even though we love our parents. And he says, you seem like a really resilient person. And the first time I met you, I was like, this person is strong. I have a love-hate relationship with being resilient and strong. I don't like the fact that people have to resort to being resilient or strong because of other people's behaviors that created conditions in order for me to be resilient and strong. But I understand where he's coming from, and I understand how it has like a positive spin. It's something I'm working out, okay? But net, this conversation and what we learned about Lindsay, it's the second example of one episode of cycle breaking. So I'm very happy for everybody involved in breaking cycles. So the cast starts to change into their dinner outfits to sit down for dinner that Mia and Ciara have prepared. So once everyone has sat down, Kyle starts to make a toast. And this man just sucks all the air out of the room, out of the backyard, whatever. He raises a glass and says, "This is what coming out here is all about." And he says he wants to apologize for last weekend. He was in a bit of a spiral. And while he's talking, Ciara and Amanda are kind of communicating with each other with their eyes, looking at each other like, what the fuck? They're kind of laughing. And Ciara kind of just tries to like slyly ask Amanda under her breath, like, is this toast about you? And Kyle just death stares Ciara. And Ciara says, sorry. And he passively aggressively says, is it okay if I address the table? You love talking over me. What? Ay, victim. He resumes and says, what I was trying to say is out of respect for my marriage and my wife, I apologize for airing some dirty laundry and letting some of my emotions get the best of me. It's important to me that everyone has a good time. And Amanda's kind of looking at him like expectantly, like, okay. And he addresses her. He's like, you're looking at me. And she says, I feel like this apology should have been given to me directly. And he replies kind of like pissily, like, well, I apologize on Sunday. And she says it doesn't need to be given to the whole table. And he pushes himself back from the table so dramatically that he knocks over his plastic chair and says, all right, I'm going to go fuck myself. Maybe I want to speak to everyone because we're all in this house together. And it would be great if people could be a little respectful at times, Ciara. And singles out Ciara. And mind you, he's slurring. Amanda says, don't do that to Ciara. And Kyle says, I'm trying to have a heartfelt moment. And she's laughing at me. And Amanda says, yeah, so was I. And he storms into the house so violently, he knocks down the fake plant and the home goods art and is swearing to himself. And that's where the episode ends. Oh, my God. Oh, geez. I am entertained. Along with the other feelings I have, I'm highly entertained. So far, 2 out of 2 episodes, these are good. And I can't wait. I can't wait for next week's. But I want to also point out, in season 4, Kyle singled out Hannah Berner as the cause of his issues with Amanda. A few seasons ago, he singled out Paige because she was dating Craig, and he was pissed off at Craig for some stupid reason having to do with Loverboy. And now he seems to be singling out Ciara in this season. So, way to avoid responsibility with some thinly veiled misogyny. Kyle, Jesus. Highly compelled watching all this behavior. Uncomfortable at times watching this behavior. But this is what I get out of watching Bravo. So, what else did I watch this week? I watched The Benito Bowl. And again, fuck Jill Zarin. I watched The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I can't remember right now even what the episode was about last week. I can't stand Dorit. I can't stand Kyle. I can't stand Amanda. I do love watching Rachel talk shit about Amanda, though. Amanda Francis. I do. Wow. I don't know what's going on with Amanda that she just puts shit out there that's utter bullshit. But like, I don't know. Thank God I don't know, right? And I've watched a lot of the Olympics. Yeah. And then what was my antidepressant last week? I did ketamine. I felt like I was stuck in a little bit of a loopy-loop and couldn't get out. And part of what I love about ketamine is that, well, what I love about all psychedelics that I've tried so far is that it helps me get out of a loop in my brain that I can't get out of for whatever reason. Ketamine has been scientifically proven to be used for the treatment of depression. And I can definitely say that has been my experience. And so I did ketamine and it was great. I don't know, y'all. That's it. This was hard. It's really hard talking by yourself for over an hour. I miss my friend. Hopefully Margie and I will be back together next week. Yeah, shit feels real gnar right now. So like, do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. Right now, I'm just trying to drink water and wash my face and brush my teeth and keep it real simple, trying to get at least 7 hours of sleep at night. I don't know whatever those versions of self-care look like for you, but just try to be gentle and easy with yourself. I could probably use with less scrolling. I don't know. I have to ask myself what I get out of it. That'll be fun, right? All right, everybody. Margie, I love you. I miss you. Everybody else, take really good care, and we'll talk next week. Bye. Yeah, and thank you for rolling with the punches as I recorded this solo. I appreciate it if you're still listening. All right. Bye, everybody.
Ramona and Margie are, obviously, not doctors and do not provide medical advice. Their content is intended to be used for entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be, should not be interpreted as, or used as a substitute for medical advice or a diagnosis of any health or fitness problem, condition, or disease, nor a recommendation for a specific test, doctor, care provider, procedure, treatment plan, product, or course of action.
My mom isn't a doctor.